Mongoose Magic Moments, the Tsabokolodi Yellow Mongoose group. Hello out there, you marvelous mongoose conservation friends. I hope you're all having a magnificent start to 2022 on this 1st of January. It's been an overcast but hot day today. We may have some more rainfall arriving in the Meerkat Magic Valley Reserve soon. I'm off to go and find the Tsabokolodi Yellow Mongooses, and today I would like to talk about the unethical use of marking methodology in research for the purpose of identifying wildlife populations and the long-term impacts this actually has on them. The reason I'm doing this video is I have been asked this question so many times over the years. I decided it was important to actually get the information out there to the public in what I like to call open source research and conservation through education. It's important to note that many people take shortcuts in research. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, I believe. And once you cross that line, there's no going back in ethics. It may take a lot longer, in fact, even decades, to recognize a study population reliably and objectively. However, that is the path that I've chosen. I have been following this particular mongoose group since 2008 and gradually getting closer and closer to them to a point where I'm treated as an object which they accept. However, it's a very tentative trust and can easily be lost. It also needs to be acquired with each successive generation of mongooses that arrive within the family unit, young or immigrant adults. I'm referring specifically to objective markings. In data collection like this, it is important with meerkats and mongooses that you can reliably identify each individual, not subjectively, because I think it looks like somebody that I actually knew from a decade ago in the Kalahari, for example, or it might be a bit bigger or a bit smaller. Those are very subjective according to the individual data collector. It's important then to be able to do this in a way that other observers can also pick up on and continue to collect unbiased data. This, however, unfortunately, is often done simply through very intrusive and often harmful marking methodologies such as freeze branding, heat branding, tail, digit, ear docking, and spray painting, gentian violet, hair cutting, etc., all on a level of more or less intrusive markings, which can be semi-permanent or permanent. Tattooing can often be done and can be hidden beneath an animal's hair or fur and does not cause a long-term impact on the study population that is visible to an observer. However, with meerkats, every single individual meerkat has the equivalent of a DNA fingerprint on their back patterns. These are like zebras' patterns, and every single one of them can help an individual identify which meerkat they're looking at. And I say individual researcher, because the meerkats do not use these markings for identification purposes. They use scent for identifying one another. What is interesting is that they actually use these patterns as disruptive crypsis, and they'll lie flat, for example, if there's an aerial predator coming overhead and they cannot get to an escape tunnel nearby, they'll rely on this crypsis. Or they may all move together very closely, and again, the disruptive crypsis breaks up the individual shape, making them look larger, and they can intimidate predators quite often in this fashion. With yellow mongooses, it is also difficult to identify them because they have very fine hair covering their bodies. Unlike the meerkats with their sparsely haired undersides, where you can quite commonly see scars and other marks through the very fine hair, it's not the case with the very cat-like and true mongoose species, Synictis penisolata, from the Tsabokolodi Yellow Mongoose group, for example. For those who follow my work, you will know what I'm talking about. And then I look for natural identifying features, such as ear knocks, tears, which are quite common with yellow mongooses because they've got very fine thin ears, almost paper-like, with fine hair covering them. They do not have the fleshy valve of the meerkat, which has a thick ear. The fleshy valve in the meerkat is what really sets it apart from true mongoose species, in my opinion, since no other mongoose has anything like it. The meerkats, however, can be identified by using the patterns on their backs. I've proven this over decades. It is possible to recognize populations completely objectively in this way, because from birth, meerkats actually have these markings on their backs. So you can see it as the pattern even before their hair starts to grow and get longer. Now, the yellow mongooses are much more difficult to recognize, but this is a long-term observation only project. I also mentioned observation only. That's another aspect of intrusive methodology. Researchers can quite commonly tame the subject matter of the study population simply by getting them accustomed to everything. And then those study animals quite commonly will not react to those warning sounds, like a crunching twig or a cough or a sneeze, that a predator may well make when approaching them. It's important, however, to make sure that the animals accept your presence, and that's where my methodology comes in. Various sounds, hand gestures, clothing types, etc. The yellow mongooses are a very difficult study animal to recognize individually. However, I've spent years doing this now, and as you get more accustomed to them, you start to recognize scars, especially on their faces and on their ears. They also do have a very distinctive tail pattern, the white on their tail tip. All right, that's what I'd like to say for now. I do not handle the animals here through choice. If I did try and do that, even animals that accept me within a meter of them would treat me as a predator attacking them. I would never break that boundary of trust. So I do not handle the animals, I do not feed the animals, do not capture, I do not mark the animals, I do not fit radio telemetry on my study populations, because it is possible to track them without these intrusive marking types. However, it does take a full-time dedication. It's time to go and find the mongooses. Stay safe out there, friends. Trust is earned with patience and care. It can be lost in an instant and has taken many, many years to build up so that I become treated as a trusted object with the Tsabokolori yellow mongoose group. At the moment, I am busy observing them at their sleeping burrow here just before sunset. It's an incredible privilege for me to be able to be within a few meters of them. When I initially started working with them back in 2008, I was over 200 meters away using Nikon spotting scopes, 60 times magnification, to try and identify individuals. Now I'm too close to even use binoculars. It allows me to get an incredible level of detail within their daily lives, and they will even allow me to follow them away from the safety of their burrow systems. The 1st of January 2022, and the mongooses have just returned to the burrow after a predator scare, and they are very observant. Because of the wind at the moment, the area is very dangerous. There we go. It's a warning. This is the dominant female just here. It's a Bokolori. And then we have one of her offspring, female Giabonga, standing up. We have Tokolosh over there. And then the dominant male, Sawubona. In the distance, the masked weaver Plesius velatus was calling. They'll often call in this area if there are predator scares. I suspect the mongooses have actually run to the burrow early because of predator interactions today. That's quite common with mongooses In my experience, specifically, I'm referring to the yellow mongoose here, and in fact banded mongooses, slender mongooses, small grey mongooses as well. They will quite commonly take cover on very overcast, windy days because of the potential threat to be found in the thermals. Dominant female Tsabokolori looking very vigilant here. This is Mongoose Magic Moments right here, the study group that I've been following since 2008. It's almost like I'm not here. They're looking all around, just checking that I'm not a threat. And this is one of my reassurance gestures I make, which they recognize. And within moments, they'll look away. There's a lot of different scanning going on here. I have to be extremely careful that I don't get associated with the threat, because I can lose this tentative trust very easily. A little wrong move. Can send them scurrying, but within a moment, familiar sounds. I can let them know that I'm not a threat at all. I'm just the same trusted object that they've got used to over many years. And that's a displacement reassurance right there. And it's very good to see that within a few moments of that predator now having left the area clearly, they're going about their normal activities. A bit of auto grooming from Sawubona and again, and then also Giabonga, and then Tokolosh coming up. Still looking a bit nervous after the recent scare. Dominant female has just gone below. This is common for the dominant animals to first investigate the burrow on returning to make sure that there is no danger below. Tokolosh has come up again. It's the youngest individual within the group at the moment, taking all of his cues from the adults. And then Giabonga, his mother, who's actually the daughter of Tsabokolori, who's basically retired. She's like the grandmother. She's no longer a breeding female. Very interesting, that greet to her mate, the dominant male, Sawubona, that little growl call, and then a scent mark on his back. That's incredibly rare to actually see that. It's so quick. Very glad I was filming at the time. And as I was mentioning in the introduction to this video, there are no intrusive marking methodology types here. It's long-term observation for conservation purposes, specifically to understand these incredible species better and to de-vilify the mongoose, which gets such a terrible and unfounded reputation quite commonly in the media, I see. That used to be directed at the now world famous meerkats in the past, where they were accused of being carriers of rabies and hunted indiscriminately. That mantle has now unjustly been passed on to another species, the mongoose. And when I say another species, I'm referring to mongooses in general. Very interesting bit of scent affirmation there by the dominant male to, in fact, his son, and then a bit of auto grooming. He basically rubbed himself against Tokolosh over here. Tokolosh still is very wary, clearly looking around for the predator. And of course, it's better to be wary and survive. As mongooses and meerkats soon discover, it's a very dangerous world out here. The reserve is looking like a jungle at the moment. It's very, very densely overgrown. And it's time for me to continue with my research. Stay safe, friends.